Hi everyone, I'm Will Wyvern. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to answer the question, how do I find my deity? As always, these are my thoughts, my beliefs, my opinions, and I want to go ahead and help whoever I can with that question, how do I find my deity? Now the first question I usually get is, do I have to have a deity? Do I require a deity to be a witch, to be a pagan? The answer is no. In my mind, there are three types of witches. Witches who are atheist, who do not believe in a deity, do not believe in a god, do not believe in a higher power. I know a lot of witches like that. Second, agnostic witches. Witches who believe there's something out there, there's a greater power, a source, a force, whatever you want to call it, they just don't know what it is. They don't know what it's called, but they know there's something out there. And the third are deity witches, witches who have a god or a goddess, and they call on them for their energy, their power, and someone they worship or believe in or work with. So those are in my opinion, three types of witches. I'm sure there are hundreds of people who have hundreds of other definitions, but for this video, in my world, those are the three types of witches. Now, if you are an atheist witch who does not believe in any god, goddess, higher power, then this video is not for you. If you're an agnostic witch, someone who believes, yes, there is a higher power, I just don't know what it is, you might want to watch this video just to get some ideas. But this video is mostly for those witches who feel a calling, who feel they need or want a deity in their practice. So this is for you guys. Nothing wrong with atheist witches, nothing wrong with agnostic witches, but this is for those witches who seek a deity. Now, another point I need to bring up, and this is a fact. This is factual. There is no sanctified Church of Wicca that all Wiccans believe in, that all Wiccans follow, that all Wiccans adhere to. Now I know people are raising their hands and screaming saying, what about the Wiccan Rede? You know, those 8 words, and you harm none, do what you will, blah, blah. And people are like, oh, if you don't believe that, you're not a witch. Well, let me tell you a little story. When I first came to North Carolina, I had a friend who introduced me to an Appalachian witch. This woman, she was about 60. She had lived in Appalachia all her life. The past 3-4 generations of her family had lived in the Appalachians. They came over from Europe in the late 1700s, early 1800s. This woman was a witch. She could trace witchcraft back in her family line for centuries. I asked her, we were just talking, sharing knowledge, and I asked her, is there like an Appalachian version of the Wiccan Rede? And I told her what it was. And she said, oh, you mean like the golden rule, do unto others as you have them do unto you. And I said, yeah, do you believe in that? Whatever. And she goes, let me tell you something. You plant an apple tree in my yard, I'll make you an apple pie. You take a piss in my garden, I'm going to take a shit in yours. That's what she believed. Now, if you told that woman she wasn't a witch unless she practiced that Wiccan Rede written by some guy in 1964, she'd laugh in your face. So, not everyone believes everything you see on the internet. Not everyone believes you have to do this or that to be a witch. Everybody has different beliefs. Now, sometimes I wish there was a Bible. Sometimes I wish there was a Wiccan guidebook, because there'd be less disagreements, less arguments. I mean, wars have started. Billions of people have died over the arguments that we discuss every day. Like, do you have to have a deity? Some people say, if you want to be a witch, you cannot believe in a deity. And they'll sprout all kinds of facts and knowledge and excerpts from poems written in the 1400s. Some people believe you have to have a deity. You have to worship Hecate. You have to worship Isis. You have to worship a god or goddess to be a witch. It's whatever works for you. Again, this video is for those people who want a deity. So let's jump right into it. There are a couple ways you can go about finding your deity. The number one way that I believe, if you have a calling, if you have dreams about Danu, a Celtic goddess, if you have dreams about Hecate, if you have dreams about Bastet, an Egyptian goddess, if you have dreams about a god or goddess, that's probably the god or goddess you need to include in your practice. If you have a calling to a god or goddess, that is probably the deity you need to find out about, you need to, learn about, and you need to include in your worship. Now, you don't have to buy a little statue like one of these. Just take a page out of a book, draw something on a pad, whatever it is that's going to help you focus on that deity. Whatever's going to help you focus on Danu or Bastet or Hel or Thor, whoever. Some people like statuettes. Some people like drawings. Some people like, whatever is associated with that god or goddess. So that's the first way. That's the way I think is most important. If you're drawn to a god or goddess, then pursue knowledge on that god or goddess. Find out what you can. The second, cultural. People want to embrace their culture. If they're Greek, they want to embrace everything Greek. Celtic, everything Celtic. Norse, everything Norse. Whatever. So if you want to try that, look at your family history, maybe do a DNA test, be prepared for any surprises, do a DNA test, find out where your blood comes from. I just found out, I always thought my blood was Celtic. I recently found out my blood goes further back than that to Norse, to Scandinavia. So I'm incorporating Scandinavian Norse gods into my belief system, into my practice, to find out which one speaks loudest to me. You can do that. You can adjust your practice. You may practice Egyptian worship this week, but then you find out, well, I really need to explore Celtic god or goddess. I'm feeling a call to this god or goddess in this culture. There's nothing wrong with that. Find what works for you. So you've got, number one, if you're called to a certain god or goddess, cultural or genetic, if you feel, you want to pursue that. And the third is kind of cultural DNA. A lot of people believe in reincarnation. You may feel a calling to an African god or goddess, and you could be as white as a fish belly. You might find a calling to a Norse god or goddess, and you might be as black as night. You might find a calling to Native American god or goddess, and you may not have a drop of Native American blood in you, indigenous people blood in you. There are people who believe in reincarnation. You may have a reincarnated soul or presence in your body that was Norse, Egyptian, African, Native American. That is a possibility. And that is something, don't be afraid of. Go ahead and explore that. You shouldn't care if you're a 60-year-old woman with gray hair, fish belly skin, and you're worshiping an African god or goddess. You should not be afraid if you're red-haired, freckled, and you're worshiping an Egyptian god or goddess. Do what feels right for you. Explore, experiment. Go to what you're called to, if that's what you feel. If you feel a strong calling to Bastet, go ahead and start tying Bastet into your practice. You do not have to worship Hecate. People say, oh, if you're a witch, you have to have a Hecate goddess symbol on your altar. You have to wear a Hecate necklace around your neck. You don't. You do not. Hecate was the first goddess I was introduced to, and then for years I never included her in my practice. Now I'm bringing her back in for some things, but it is not a requirement. Let me say that again. There is no Church of Wicca. There is no set guidelines on who or what you can worship. And let me touch on that. Your deity doesn't have to be a god or goddess. Your deity can be your ancestors. I know lots of people who they only call on their ancestors. They don't believe in a god or goddess, but they believe in their ancestors. I know people who call on their spirit guide or their spirit animal. There are people who only believe in animal, I don't want to say gods or goddesses, but animal spirits who guide humans. There are people who believe only in the earth, in the trees and the rivers, in the rocks, the elements, earth, wind, fire, water. It's whatever you believe in. Whatever you want to make your deity, if you want to have a deity, that is what you can make your deity. Find what works for you. Don't let anybody tell you you can't worship this god because you're not Egyptian, or you can't worship this god because you're not Native American, or you can't wear that Thor's hammer necklace because you're not, Norwegian. Do whatever works for you, whatever gives you that sense of fulfillment, that sense of bonding with your deity, with your god, your goddess, your ancestors. It's all about you. Do not let some high priest of the Third Order of Sisters of Hecate on Facebook tell you what you have to do and what you can't do. Don't let somebody on TikTok say that every ceremony must begin with an atonement to Hecate. Bullshit. I'm calling bullshit right now. You can worship however you want to. You can have a deity. You can have 5 deities. You can have no deities. You can have whatever works for you. Open yourself to exploring and experimenting. Try Egyptian gods. Get a book from your library or look on the internet about Egyptian gods. See if there's one who really speaks to you. One of my favorite Egyptian gods is Thoth. He's the god of knowledge. I never heard of him until 20 years ago, and now he's someone I go to when I'm seeking knowledge or I want to share knowledge. Danu, Celtic goddess. Look at all these different goddesses or gods and experiment. How do you feel when you put a Native American god on your altar? How do you feel when you put a Scandinavian goddess on your altar? Do you feel closer to your energy? Do you feel closer to your magic? Or do you not feel anything? If you don't want a deity, you don't have to have a deity. If you want a deity, open yourself to exploration, explore all these the gods and goddesses out there, and you're going to find what works for you. So that is how I believe you can find a deity, if you need one. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, remember, these are my thoughts. The only fact I've stated here is there is no Church of Wicca. You cannot argue that with me. There is no Church of Wicca that sets guidelines on who or what you worship, how you worship, what you do. There is no Church of Wicca that all witches follow. That is the fact. Everything else I've talked about is my thought, my opinions, my beliefs. If you want to call me an idiot, if you want to call me a heretic, if you want to call me whatever, knock yourself out. But these are my thoughts, my beliefs. I share them hoping you can find what works for you. I wish you blessings in your search. I wish you success. I'm going to close out with a statement not many people like, but I love. You get out of magic what you put into magic. You make an effort, you're going to get rewarded. If you just sit back and expect wonderful things are going to happen to you, whatever. You get out of magic what you put into magic. And with that, I'm going to close. I'm going to wish you a blessed day. I wish you and yours the best. And as always, thank you.